Happy New Year. It's not, are you kidding me? Right, so in the regular, there you go, the Gregorian calendar, secular calendar, that's the word I was looking for. It is not New Year's yet. But in the church calendar, we turn over the New Year starting with Advent 1. So we have a full month leading up to Christmas, and then we go back to some greens time after Christmas, and then we get into Lent, and we're off and rolling again for another preparation season. But Advent is a season of preparing, getting ready for this awesome present that is Jesus. So, Happy New Year to you all. During this Advent season, we're talking about traveling light. That's what the video was about. And this morning, we're going to talk about stuff. We're going to talk about all of our stuff. And stuff wasn't a big deal. Uh-oh. There we go. Stuff wasn't a big deal for us until these two came along. And really, when Adam and Eve got started, stuff for them wasn't a big deal either. They could sit in the garden and they could look to their left. They had all these fruits and vegetables, big trees, everything they would need to eat. Shelter, warm weather. I mean, they were naked running around the garden, so the weather had to have been pretty decent. They could look at the right and see all the animals of every type, and they had dominion over them. Adam got to name them. Everything they would ever need was right there, right or left. There was nothing for them to want for. They had all the stuff they needed. Then they heard about this tree that sat right out in front of them, just tempting them. They were told, don't go there. Well, and then we know the story. There's a serpent that's like, hey, guess what? It's not going to kill you. It's just God doesn't want you to know things that God knows. So trust me. You just take one little bite. You'll know everything God knows, and you'll live. You're not going to die. We know what happened. They went, they ate, and they realized that they needed stuff. The first stuff they needed was leaves, because they realized they were naked, so they needed leaves to cover themselves. They realized we need stuff, and we have not turned back since. Most of our lives, probably from the first birthday you can remember, it's been about getting more stuff. Every birthday, every holiday, what kind of stuff am I going to get? And then as you get older and you can afford to buy your own stuff, you don't wait for the holidays anymore. If I want stuff, I just go get it now, because every day is a birthday when you've got the ability to go buy it. So we surround ourselves with stuff. And that's exactly what Jesus was talking about when these two young men come up to him. We presume that Jesus knows a little bit about who these two are by the parable that we're going to hear in a minute. But the first brother says to Jesus, will you please tell my brother to give me half of the stuff, half of the inheritance? I want my part now. I don't want to wait. I deserve it. You know, we presume mom and dad are gone, or at least dad's gone. And I want my inheritance, and I want it Now give me my stuff. Jesus says, that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to be arbitrator over your possessions, over your stuff. That's not the kingdom I'm here about. So then he tells them a parable. And the parable is about this very rich farmer. So I presume, because Jesus knows the audience that he's talking to, that these two men who had an inheritance coming to them were probably pretty well off to begin with. So he tells them this parable. This farmer, who's been laboring in the fields year after year, worrying about his crops, about his stuff. Is it going to rain? Is it going to rain too much? Is it going to have sunshine? Is it going to have too much sunshine? Is it going to be too hot? Is it going to be too cold? A whole lifetime as a farmer worrying about his stuff, about his crops. And then one year, the stars aligned perfectly. It's the perfect amount of sunshine, the perfect amount of rain, just enough wind, and boom, he's got more crops than he knows what to do with. And he's left with a dilemma. Do I keep dragging around my stuff, or do I give some of it away? Well, the parable says that he tore down his barns and built new ones, which created more problems for him, because now you can't just build a barn and leave it there because people know that you're putting stuff in your barn. You know, like they'll come get your snowblower out of your barn or something like that. But there it is. You have to have someone to protect your barn now. So he added more baggage to his stuff. Jesus said, that's not what this kingdom's about. There are more important stuff to worry about. Oop, too far. Back up. Sometimes we know there's important stuff in our lives, and we can never have too much of it. Okay? So, one of something is good, but two of something is better, and three is better than two, and four. And sometimes we get to 8. Now you see where I'm going. Sometimes we get to 8, and we think, well, maybe 8 is enough, and we know darn well that 8 will never be enough. Right? 8, 9, 10, when we're talking about this. But that's not the kingdom that we're talking about either. Right? But hey, it was a pretty good game, so I had to sneak that in there. Know your audience. That was the deal. But we all have too much stuff. I mean, look around. You probably have too much stuff. And it could be physical stuff, it could be emotional stuff. We'll get to that later in this sermon series. But the idea is we've got just too much. Sometimes we're buried by it. We have to drag it around. Imagine this thing filled with bowling balls and you got to carry it around with you all the time. It's draining. That's not the life that Jesus wants us to have. A life of joy and freedom and love, weighed down by stuff. That's not it, guys. That's not the kingdom I'm talking about. This week, we celebrated Thanksgiving, right? Starting about Monday last week, we started prepping my house for 23 people to invade, because we were hosting Thanksgiving for my family this Thanksgiving. So we started on Monday, and by about Tuesday, my kids were like, we have too much stuff. I mean, we're hiding things in closets, we're moving things downstairs, we're putting things in the attic. I hope we remember what we put where, because we kind of need some of these things, or at least we think we need some of these things. Never know. It might go in the attic and we don't look at it for another year and we go, maybe we didn't need that stuff anyway. But we had to clear out space because 22 people in a 4-bedroom house is, okay, 22 people anywhere is a tight fit, but in our house. It was a really tight fit. But here's the thing. I was willing to get rid of some of that stuff, move out some of those things, so that we could really enjoy the stuff that mattered. Family, friends, good conversation, scary conversation, all of it. I'm sure you all went through Thanksgiving Day and didn't have one person say one crazy thing. Good. I'm glad that that didn't happen for you. We didn't survive it that way, but we did survive. We did manage with 22 people in the house to not have total chaos break loose, but to make room for that kind of important stuff in our life was important. We made room at the table for this. Oh, there you go. I finally heard it. An ooh. Yeah, we know that's cranberry sauce, right? Or at least something that started off as cranberry sauce before they crammed it into a can. Yeah. There's only one person, really, other than myself, in my family that likes that stuff, and that's my grandpa. This year we celebrated Thanksgiving for the third year without Grandpa at Thanksgiving, but we put the cranberry jelly on the table anyway. You want to find out what stuff is really important to you? Think about what you would give up. What stuff would you be willing to go, I don't ever want to see that again, if Grandpa could be sitting at the end of the table just one more Thanksgiving? What kind of stuff that we hold on to would we be willing to part with for just one more day with Grandma, Grandpa, aunt, uncle, mother, father? Absolutely. We'd give it all up, right? There wouldn't be a thing we'd hold on to. That's the stuff that Jesus wants us to hold on to. That kind of the cranberry jelly stuff. Because that's what makes our lives full and beautiful. As we go into this Advent season, we're in a season of hope. A hope that even though this Thanksgiving we might have been hurting because Grandma or Grandpa or Mom or Dad wasn't there, we have hope that Jesus came to us on Christmas morning, lived, died, and was resurrected, so that we will again be able to celebrate the great feast with our loved ones. That this life is not the end of our story, it's only the beginning. Every time we gather as a worshiping community here, we celebrate the meal, a foretaste of the feast that is to come. Yeah, there may not be any cranberry jelly up there today, but the bread and the wine remind us that this is hope. We enter into a season that tells us this is not the end of our story, it's merely the beginning. And we get to use it as a gift. We have the opportunity to go out and share that gift of hope with a world that desperately, desperately needs to hear it. See if you can find one person this week to share that hope with. Maybe it's somebody that was already at your table and they just need to hear it again. Maybe it's a stranger that's having a rough day and you get to just share some of that Advent hope with them. That's my prayer for you this week, that you find someone to share that hope with. Amen.